really appreciate you taking the time to do this. And these are my favorite kind of episodes where we just met 6 minutes ago, pulled out all the recording equipment, sat down, and now we're going to hear your story. Some context for listeners, Quan is in one of Jeremy Newsom's groups with my wife, and you guys learned, is that the first time you'd taken that course with him?
Yes.
Okay.
We're learning how to trade stocks on the stock market.
Which is,
something wild.
It's wild. Mm-hmm. And it's wild to think like the biggest capacity to generate wealth is kind of this game that's just available to all of us.
Yeah.
And so my wife has become friends with you through that group because it seems like, you guys are getting into it together and like going on a journey.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun, and I'm watching her trade too. I was like, man, she's a beast.
That's what I keep hearing. So you did the last group. Did you also run through it a second time too?
Yeah, I just see so much value in continuing to learn, and plus I like the community. Like everything that's been going on. Like, you know what? I think this is a worthy investment for me and for my time.
And Jeremy and Jenny both told me that people that have signed up have made more through trading than the cost of the course.
Yeah, I believe it.
And so it's like that's you're actually getting paid to learn this stuff if you look at it that way.
Yeah. But people, I think that it goes back to like even what we're learning in the course about like buying puts to protect your position. There's a mental shift that has to happen where, wait, why do you have to pay ahead of time to learn? Why not? Like if you're going to make more, but people want to make more after or something. So it's always been.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, if you charge a premium price, you're going to have people show up and give premium effort.
Yeah.
Because if Jeremy taught this course for $600, there'd be all kinds of people logging in, but probably not taking it very serious.
Yeah, I believe it.
It's funny you mentioned like hearing about a put for the first time. Mm-hmm. And when Jeremy was telling me this the first time, being a cop for 10 years, like my cop brain was like, hold on a second. Because anytime something sounds too good to be true, it almost feels like a pyramid scheme or a Ponzi scheme, and it's like, wait, is this legal?
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
Well, there's a funny story because I've known about puts, and I think that's going to be part of our conversation today is I was very fascinated and interested in puts when I was incarcerated. I used to have a subscription to Wall Street Journal, and I would go to the puts page. I was so fascinated with puts.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like, this is legit shit right here that I want to learn about.
I never even heard of a put until 3 months ago. So yeah, dude, how I like to run my show is just kind of give you the floor to tell your story, like where you came from, who you are, where you came from, what you're about. You already mentioned it, your journey into incarceration and how it sounds like you really found yourself through that and are now giving back to that same community. And I think that's a powerful story to tell. And so, yeah, I'll just let you introduce yourself, and then we'll just have a conversation, have fun with it.
Okay. My name's Quan Huynh. I currently work as the executive director for Defy Ventures, which is a nonprofit. Our mission is to shift mindsets to give people with criminal histories their best shot at a second chance. My title is executive director for Defy Ventures in Southern California, so it's a national organization, but I'm the executive director for our operations here in SoCal.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me see. What can I say? So, first generation Vietnamese refugee came to the U.S. after the fall of Vietnam. My father was a military officer for the South Vietnamese Military Academy. When we lost our country, we came to the U.S. I was still a toddler, maybe only a few months old.
Okay. I was going to say, do you remember anything?
No,
okay.
Nothing. And we settled, of all places, in Provo, Utah, because my mother had never seen snow.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was just out in Provo. One of my best friends lives there.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I was there just a couple months ago for a prison event. So one of our chapters is out there now in Salt Lake City. So I went back there.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There's a large population of refugees out there because a lot of the people of the Mormon faith really pour into that community. Is that true or?
So a funny. I don't know if okay. So I would have to say a legacy of what. So I would have to venture to say that we were probably one of the very first Vietnamese families in Utah.
Okay.
At the time. So my father was a military officer. He came to the U.S. In the late 60s. He trained with the U.S. Special Forces. So he knew the lay of the land. And then when we lost our country, when my mom said she wants to settle in a place that had snow because she wanted to see snow, he had said Utah. So those were our first sponsors.
Oh, wow.
Was in Provo. Yeah, so we settled there. I remember my name, Quan, in Vietnamese is pronounced Wung. And I guess my sponsors couldn't pronounce it, so they just called me Jackie. So
Wung?
Yeah, Wung. Like Quan, but the Southerners, we pronounce it Wung. But like if you're from North, they would say Quan. Like they would, So
they just abandoned that altogether, and your name was Jackie?
Jackie. I don't know where that came from.
Did that stick?
No.
Oh,
and then when I came into elementary, I remember when I was like 4 or 5, my teacher says, "How do you say this name?" And I just said Wung, and she's like, "Quan." And I was like, "Okay."
And the rest is history.
Yeah, and that was it, and that was my name. So, grew up in Provo, Utah. My father created the Vietnamese Refugee Association, which helped Vietnamese refugees settle in our new homeland. So he actually helped quite a bit of Vietnamese settle in and around Utah.
Okay.
So I think growing up, that man was my hero. I got to see him on the news, on TV. There was government dignitaries that used to come by and say, "Oh yeah, this is your father." And
so he was doing that on a pretty large level then.
Yeah, even as a little boy, I remember we were going to like, as a kid, I would go with him on these long car drives to like Wyoming or Colorado or other states, and then he said, "Oh, I'm just helping people," and I didn't understand him. I couldn't comprehend why my dad was doing something and he wasn't getting paid for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, well, this doesn't make sense. He's like, "Well, I just like to help people," and so he's helping them with their social security documents, their paperwork, their driver's license, whatever it was. So I remember because of his work, he was recognized in Utah. We used to have government dignitaries at our house all the time, and as a little boy, I remember they told me like, "Hey, when you grow up, we want you to be just like your father. You're going to go to the U.S. military academy. You'll be the very first Vietnamese one to go to West Point." And that was me as a little kid. I used to look at books like, "Oh, I want to wear that gray uniform. I want to be just like my dad. Like who else could I aspire to be?" So, that was the backdrop of growing up in Utah. Of course, that was a beautiful, beautiful state.
Yeah, I love Utah.
Yeah.
And you said your family was one of the first ones out there.
I would guess probably one of the very first ones.
Okay.
I mean, we weren't.
So then
we got flown out of Vietnam.
He got to kind of trailblaze that process.
Yeah.
And then he probably went through so many hardships and dealt with problems that no one knew what the solution was.
I would imagine so. I mean,
he felt like, yeah, why not help out people coming in?
Yeah. But I even remember as a little boy growing up, I mean, there was like, it felt like I was living in two worlds. Like, growing up, I was like, wait, why can't I look like everybody else around me? Like, why can't I look normal like the kids I see at school? Why am I being teased? Like, why are people making fun of us in public? Like I said, like Utah was a beautiful place, but I also experienced what I do now know to be racism, and especially with the backdrop of the Vietnam War, there was people telling us, "Go back to your country, get out of here." Yeah.
They just think everybody that's Vietnamese is the enemy. Huh?
Yeah.
So what a crazy. And especially little kids.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Utah, even Utah now doesn't have much diversity. But back then, there wasn't probably anyone other than white people.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. That's why, like, I think there was this, within myself, I just felt like, why can't my family just look normal? Thinking that is normal, but.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. How old were you when you first started to notice that people were either looking at you different or treating you different?
I don't know. just always felt like
Just
that. Growing,
as long back as you can remember.
Yeah, like even before going into preschool or school, like just as a little kid, I just never felt like I fit in. I never felt like I never felt like I was. Yeah, I never felt normal.
At what age or at what point, I guess if ever, did you notice that start to shift?
I think that's always a part of the seed of me, like things that don't fit in. It continued to be a continued thread throughout my life, even throughout later, which led me to join in the games, which led me to everything that happened later on in my life.
Oh wow! So did you stay in Utah then, or I mean,
no,
because there's no gangs in Salt Lake, is
yeah,
there?
no. So well, actually there is. I
Is
think,
there?
But yeah, but yeah, well, there's gangs everywhere. But I think so. My father got diagnosed with leukemia when I was 8. He was working in the coal mines, and I guess because of the radiation or something, there was a class action lawsuit against the government around the nuclear testing down in Georgetown or whatever. I can't remember exactly what it was, but he got diagnosed with leukemia. So his condition continued to get worse. So we moved back to, well, not back. We moved to California, where some of his family had settled.
Okay.
And then that's probably the first time that I went to school with kids that were not totally white. Or different. Even like the first time I went to school with kids that were Vietnamese. And this is around the time when the first wave of the boat people were coming over, the refugees that were trying to escape Vietnam. So I went to school with kids that were used to tease me. They said like, "Oh, you're not Vietnamese, you're whitewashed. You can't even speak our language." And so I think that weird
So you didn't
identity.
you were stuck somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I just felt like I don't fit in. I don't fit in with people. And of course, like these kids were older, because like a lot of the parents, what they used to do is, let's say the kid was 13, 14, but the parents would say, "Oh, my child is 10 or 11," so they would change the age so the kids could go back to school and learn the language.
Oh,
so these kids
yeah.
were physically more mature, emotionally more mature, and they couldn't speak. I couldn't speak Vietnamese well, so of course I got teased. And then of course I'm smaller than already, so then they're bigger than me, and then yeah.
Did you guys not continue to speak Vietnamese in your household?
Not much. I mean, we spoke a little bit, but I mean, like, I'm growing up watching American TV. I'm going to school speaking English, and I want to fit in. So of course, I felt like maybe I think there was a part of me that felt like, okay, it's shameful. I want to be part of this society. I don't want to be part of this family here.
Isn't that interesting? Like that kind of used to be the way, like assimilate to our culture, and now I would say like different cultures and heritages are more celebrated.
Yeah, but there was not much celebration back then. But but even in our culture.
Are you teaching your kids Vietnamese?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we try to speak to them.
Good.
Yeah, I think because even in our language, it's a closer bond.
Well, it's a bond, and it also like it just expands your capacity to learn. Because they say once you learn 2 languages, your brain can learn multiple.
Yeah.
And it's much easier. Do you guys? I'm fascinated by bilingual people because I speak English, and I've taken like a couple years of Spanish. I lived in Iraq for 5 years, and I can say hello. Like my brain just doesn't do languages very well.
Well, my Vietnamese wasn't great until actually I had to learn it when I was incarcerated, because now that's a way for us to survive and be able to communicate without people understanding. And so it was a different need. Like I could speak very rudimentary Vietnamese before, but I would have to say my Vietnamese is pretty. I speak it pretty well. Like, people are surprised when they're like, "Oh, you speak Vietnamese really well."
So how old were you again when you came to California then?
10.
10, and that's not too far out from dabbling in gang culture.
Yeah.
You know, like I know a lot of the kids around here get into it very, very young, and it's surprising. Like 12, 13, 14-year-olds banging.
Oh yeah, I see, especially in a lot of the marginalized communities, that I guess that's what they grow up in. It wasn't like that for me. When we came here, we settled in Huntington Beach, which was also mostly white communities. I remember my mother and father intentionally said, "Oh, we can't live in these certain cities because there's a Vietnamese gang culture already, so let's live outside it.
So they were intentional about not exposing you to that.
They were, but then my father passed away from leukemia when I was 13, and then that was like the year before. I mean, the summer before I went to high school, and like looking back now, we never really processed, like, in the process of writing my book. That was when I realized how bizarre it was the day that my father died, because he died on a day, like, we grew up Roman Catholic, so that was another piece, like, in Utah, like, it's all Mormons, and like, not only am I Vietnamese, but I'm Roman Catholic, and then
so you can't fit it anywhere, man.
Yeah, wherever we went. So then, it was on the day of our first communion, is when he passed away. And I remember, like, I think even looking back, like me, my younger brother, my younger sisters, our goal was like, okay, on the day of our first communion, we're just going to eat the bread, and then our first prayer is going to make sure our dad is alive. So I remember that morning, I came into the bathroom, my baby sister says, oh, dad died last night. And then she's like, but we're not supposed to know. So I went back and told my brother. And then we went to church, and we didn't talk about it.
You're not supposed to know?
Yeah, like that was it. So they didn't talk about it, and I didn't really realize this until the process of writing my memoirs. Like, wait, what was going on that day? Like, we're sitting in church. Everybody knows my dad's alive. I mean, he's dead, but we're acting like we're here to. And then the priest is up there talking about this is a great celebratory day. Like, this is where, and like, it wasn't until after we left church that my mother had told us, like, confirmed to us, and my sister, I remember exactly, she threw up in the parking lot. So I'm 13, my brother's 12, my sister's 10, and we just...
How did your sister already know?
She overheard my mom and grandma.
Oh, wow.
When the hospital called that night, because she slept in the same bed as them, yeah.
Man, that's shocking.
Yeah. And then even after that, we never talked about it again.
You never talked about it?
No, it was like, so when my understanding now, we should have went to therapy. We should have so we didn't. It was like, you don't talk about it. Okay, your dad's dead. You don't talk about it.
Is that
it's a cultural thing?
I was going to say, in Vietnam, is that how it is too? Because I was under the impression that most other cultures have a better relationship with death, and it's an American thing that we just have this immense fear around it, and then are terrible at processing it.
I would have to say no. I think especially, I don't know. I can't speak for other Asian cultures. I know the Vietnamese one is like my mom, very stoic, doesn't talk about it. There doesn't express much emotion, and that's just the mom that I knew growing up. Like, she expresses emotion by her cooking. Like, she's an amazing cook, and that's how I know I'm loved. But she will not tell me she loves me, and she won't tell me, like, how are you feeling today, or it's just like, get your good grades, become a doctor or a lawyer, and...
You should pin her down and make her tell you she loves you.
No, it's funny, because that was one of the chapters in my book, and then one of my buddies, like, he knew my mom from in there and out here, and he's like, hey, I just got to this, can your mom still not tell you she loves you? I said, check this out. And I said, Mom, I love you. And she's like, okay, thank you.
Man, people are crazy, dude. How old was your father when he passed?
Probably like 36, 37.
Young, man. Yeah. And you say that it sounds like you tied the leukemia into his work in the coal mines. That was the area that was radiated or whatever?
Yeah. Quite a few of his coworkers had come down with leukemia.
Man, that's so sad.
Yeah.
And then it sounds like that started to be... So at that point, now you're the man of the household.
Oh, yeah, because I remember that's the pressure that... I don't think my mom meant it that way, but she's like, okay, I remember even walking into... I'm 14, and we're at Taco Bell, and... My mom's like, oh, you have to hurry and get older and get a job so you could help take care of the family. So I remember that pressure that was on me. I was like, okay, this is what I have to do. And, and I have to take care of my brother and sister, take care of my mom. And at that time, she was already working full-time, never home. And then me and my brother were just left on our own. And then we were just running on the streets. I think one of the school had always come easy for me, so I could still get good grades, yet still not do much studying or whatever, and just run around on the streets. And then there were the older Vietnamese guys that just took us in, and that's where began down that long path of.
So, I mean, it's funny because I don't know if Jenny told you, but I was a deputy in LA for a long time too. So I've worked a lot of casework and warrants and whatnot in this area. And so I've always been fascinated by the gang culture because I got to really see it up front and personal for the few years that I was here. And I realized, man, the gang culture, it offers a lot of the same stuff that the military offered to me.
Yeah.
A sense of belonging,
Sense of
brotherhood, identity.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, the only difference between you and me is my gang was government sanctioned.
Absolutely.
But for a young man to, like, and you already articulated it, after you moved here, you struggled with identity. You didn't feel like you belonged. So you were like a prime candidate that as soon as someone showed, and then on top of that, your mother won't say she loves you. It's like everything was stacked against you, where as soon as somebody gave you a sense of belonging or a sense of compassion or like camaraderie, I'm sure as a young man, it was like a drug.
Yeah, I even remember like still always holding on to the hope that I'm gonna make my father proud by going to West Point. I remember sharing in my freshman year I was part of this Model United Nations group, and then they said, oh, what school do you want to go? What school do you want to go? And then when I said I want to go West Point, everyone laughed like, West Point? How are you ever going to get to West Point? You have to, and I was like, damn, how am I going to get there? And it was just always something that was held at the back of my mind. And then I didn't do well on my SAT scores. I was like, oh man, I don't do well on the SAT scores. I don't even have someone to sponsor me to get in. Like, if I still live in Utah, there would have been these government people that could have pushed the application through. So, so I remember there was the military recruiters at school for the ROTC. So I was like, you know what? I still want to make my dad proud and go to ROTC. I had filled out the form, and then it was one evening when I guess the recruiter called my house, and my mom picked it up, and then she said like, what? Recruiter? No, my son is not joining. My son's going to West Point. She just hung up. Like, why are these recruiters calling our house?
Yeah.
I was like, I couldn't tell her, like, how am I going to go to the military? I can't even go. How am I going to make it to West Point? I don't know what to do. Yeah.
And so, like, that was what you said, you were 17, 18 going through that process?
15, 16, and then my first arrest came at 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before your first arrest, though, I mean, I'm assuming you'd already started to immerse yourself with the culture and hang around the...
Yeah, like the older guys. Like, I had a friend that had some older brothers, and these guys, I remember, I think I broke into my first car when I was like 14 already, and then we stole a car stereo out of there, and then I started learning how to pull the car stereos. They showed me how to break into the cars, and then I remember my mom, like, I'm 14, 15, I don't know how to drive a car. I had like a whole bunch of car stereos under my bed, and she's like, what is all this? I said, oh, I know how to fix cars. She said, oh, you're so smart, you know how to do that. And it was like, we were grabbing car stereos to sell it back in the days.
And it never occurred to her that you were stealing that shit, huh?
No.
Man.
And then that kind of course, leads to other things. I remember...
Would the older guys, like, request this of you? Or was it just kind of, you're all in this shit together?
Yeah, we were all in. And I think I got recognized. Oh, man, you're fast. You're pretty fast. You break into a Honda with just that Stanley screwdriver that quick? How quickly did you do it? Oh, how'd you pull the Alpine out so quickly? And then I remember the first time we found a wallet, and then there were credit cards in there, and I showed them, what do I do with this? Here, let us show you. And they take me out to eat, and so then they were like, oh, yeah, this is what you do next. I remember when I got my driver's license, they say, okay, this is what you need to do. You need to go to every Bank of America, I think it was, Bank of America, and drop off these checks in there. And so what I found out later is, like, there was this little glitch in B of A's system where if you put in a cashier's check that's under $800, it will clear that same day. So even if I deposit 30 checks into the same account, or
it
40
goes
checks,
in 30 times,
it goes in 30 or 40 times. So
would you have to drive around and go to different branches, or could you just...
so I drew a map of all the branches and then what they gave me is, okay, they give me this credit card okay, go buy what you want. I was just buying PlayStation games and buying beef jerky. That's what I like. And then they give me a few $100s. So I like, oh man, this is cool. I'm coming up. And so I think what they did was you put it into one account, and then somebody would go and withdraw all the money the next day, and they would just pull all this money out. And I didn't notice later until my first arrest, and then I see they came out in the news like, oh, this organized crime group fraud B of A of like 2 point something million. I was like, what? How did that happen? I didn't understand how they pulled this off. But I remember they had printed cashier's checks from these things, and then they ran out of cashier's checks. So then they started getting local gangs to do stick-ups, but lay people down, pretend they're taking foreign money. But then they would go into the back room, pull the payroll checks, like maybe 10 or 20 of the payroll checks that have like three payroll checks, whatever. So no one could report it stolen, and they print these. So that was the actual money that they were going after, not the cash. So then they hired local gangs to do it. And I remember when I was in juvenile hall, I see other local gangs that were arrested. They said, oh yeah, we did this robbery at this liquor store. And they're like, oh man, that was the big homies got these guys to do it. And I didn't even know any of that. They were just all organized around that.
Wow. And dude, bank fraud.
Yeah, they were
get hammered for bank fraud.
Yeah.
I know at least like the feds, well, most of it is federal because it's federally insured.
Yeah.
So that's what makes you catch federal charges on bank fraud.
And that was my friend later that got caught with the feds. Him and his brothers went up to Fed. And I was like, oh, those are the older guys that I was learning from.
Oh, damn. Mm-hmm. How long did they get? Do you remember?
I can't remember. 5, 10 years. I don't know.
Because, I mean, that was always kind of the understanding that the feds will throw the book at you on any type of credit card or bank fraud because it's FDIC insured.
Yeah.
And so their lobbyists and the people at the top have a lot of power, and they're like, hey, hammer these guys when they go after us. Mm-hmm. And so that's like, yeah, guys go down hard for bank fraud.
Yeah.
So then you went to juvenile hall. Was that for the bank fraud stuff?
No, so I went to juvenile hall. I think I always carried a chip on my shoulder from my time in Utah when it came to like racism and like white supremacy. So there were a local skinhead gang at my school, and we started having beef with the guys at the school. So then...
Wait, what year was this?
In the early 90s.
Early 90s?
Early
okay.
90s, yeah.
I didn't even know. I guess early 90s skinheads were kind of phasing out, but they were still a thing.
Yeah, I guess in Huntington Beach, though, it was a thing. So
okay.
Yeah, and then I was when I look back now, it was just some other kids that were just proclaiming to be skinheads. I remember like me and my brother and like our group of friends, every time we saw like some guy with a shaved head and some swastikas, are you a skinhead? Yeah. Or if he said no, you look like one or whatever. So it was like taking back out on guys that used to pick on us in Utah as little kids.
Oh, so would you guys jump them then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we would fight with them, or we would jump them, and then we had beef with these one guys from our they were at a continuation school. So I remember that year I was working at a Subway restaurant as a sandwich maker.
Dude, gang members don't make sandwiches. You're like, want to bet?
No, I wasn't. So I was working at Subway, and then my brother comes in and said like, oh, these skinheads, these local skinheads had called our house and threatened to kill our mom. And like, so he had picked up the phone, and they're like, oh, you gooks, like, we're going to come kill you guys. And he listened to the voice, he goes, oh, I know who that is. So he's like, oh, so he came to my, the Subway. He's like, hey, so-and-so just called our house and threatened to kill mom. So we're going to go find them. Do you think Veronica, that my coworker, knows where they live? So Veronica was just a person that worked with me. So,
but she knew the skinheads?
She knew them. It was like everyone kind of knew each other. So I'm like, hey, do you know where these guys live? She's like, yeah. So she drew a map, and then I gave them a map, and then they said, okay, we'll come back at 10 o'clock to pick you up, and we'll go find them, and we'll shoot them up. So about 4 weeks before that, I think one of my friends had got a hold of like a little 22 handgun.
That's a typical gang gun for some piece of shit, right?
Yeah, like we were just like, okay, we're like, oh, we're not gang members. We're just like this group that doesn't like these guys, and we don't have to be part of that gang. And because so we just
kind of made your own then, huh?
Like we just had our core group of friends, and then I remember we went to this house party, and then some of those, the skinheads, there was probably about 14, 15 of them that had surrounded us, and my buddy had pulled out the gun, and they all ran, and that's when we first saw the power of what a gun can do. Like, this the true equalizer right here. And so then, like, after that, we're like, okay, we'll just do this. We'll just shoot everybody up. And never shot anybody before in our lives. Never shot the gun before. And when my brother had come and said, okay, we'll come back and pick you up. And we'll say, okay, yeah, when you come back and pick me up, we'll find the house and we'll just shoot it up.
And how old are you at this point?
17.
17, okay.
Yeah, my brother was 15. So then I got off work. Nobody picked me up. I came home and my brother was hiding under, like, he was under the blankets. And I said, what happened? He's like, oh.
They went and did it, huh?
They went, I guess they couldn't find the house from the map. So they went to the arcade and they found another guy that said, oh, I know where they live. So he got in the car and then they drove him over there. He showed them the house, and then my other friend went up, knocked on the door, and he ran in and he shot 3 people.
Whoa.
Yeah. Fortunately, they
with
all
that
survived.
22?
Yeah, with that 22.
Okay.
They all 3 survived, but then within 2 weeks, I was arrested with all of them for conspiracy to commit murder, and I was facing 45 years to life.
Oh, from just talking about being part of it.
The conspiracy was me asking for the map.
Yeah.
And then she drew
That
it.
was your overt act.
Yes. See, overt act.
Yeah,
yes.
your overt
But,
act.
okay,
I'm very familiar with the conspiracy laws
but then
because
she was not. Veronica was never arrested at all. Yeah. So I was like, okay.
they call it the conspiracy train when they're teaching us how you apply charges to people under a single RICO or conspiracy charge. And it's like, it's the conspiracy train, and this train's going to this destination and committing this crime. And anybody that gets on or off the train while it's on its path to commit the crime gets wrapped into that conspiracy web, and it takes one overt act, and now you are charged with the murder. Wow. And so you got arrested for that, you say, a couple weeks later?
Yeah, a couple
and then
weeks later.
that was with the feds, correct?
No, that was not with the feds. That was the state.
Okay,
State of California.
I didn't know that the state had conspiracy charges.
Yeah, the state had the state came out with conspiracy charges after the war on drugs, the mass incarceration policies of the 80s. And they had this conspiracy, and they
because then they can lump you all in together.
First the feds have it, and then the states applied it too.
Wow. So what was that experience like? Do you get a cop kicking your door in at 6 a.m, or did you just?
No, they snatched me up at my high school. They called me out, and then they brought me to the station, and then they had already arrested everyone else, and they said, "Were you here for this?" And At the time, I was too stupid to even know anything about. They're reading me my rights. I should just shut up. But I didn't know any of that.
I say it to listeners all the time as a former cop. Lawyer up the second they start. I don't care if you're completely innocent.
Yeah.
Lawyer up.
Yeah. Well, I was 17. Right. I didn't know any of that. So.
Well, and also, I mean, even now, as someone that spent 10 years in the professional law enforcement, when you hear that story, it's like, and the 17-year-old kid that asked for a map, should he be looking at life for conspiracy to murder someone? It just feels off. It doesn't feel right. But that's the game that's being played now. And so I'm sure when they were telling you that, did you feel like, nah, this is not going to be as big of a deal as they're claiming it's going to be?
Yeah, I was like, what? I didn't. In my heart to heart, like we never even shot a gun. I never seen any of my friends shoot a gun. Like I never even thought, like, what's the worst thing that I thought would happen? That we were gonna go in a car, drive by the house, or find it and just shoot at the house and take off. Like,
to scare them a little bit. And wow, dude. Yeah. So what made your friend go from, hey, we're gonna put a couple rounds in the house, to walking through the door and shooting 3 people?
That one I never know. So there was 2 of them. One was an older guy that told him, hey, just go up there and do it. And then my brother, I remember, said he was still in the car, and the older guy said, said, okay, the one that, because they picked up some guy from the arcade. It wasn't our group of friends.
He was the real map.
Yes.
You gave him the wrong map.
Yes.
Yeah, you can't get in trouble for the wrong map.
So the guy that showed them the house, when when he went out to go, so I guess the guy that showed the house walked up to the house first, knocked on. They told him go up to the house, knock on the door, and tell us how many people's inside. So when he was walking up there,
he was a white dude, yeah.
Yes.
So you had like an undercover actor.
But then the older guy told my brother and my friend that did the shooting. He said, okay, after you, okay, when he comes back, let us know how many people in the house. You go up and shoot them, and after that, come back and then we'll shoot this guy. And my brother's like,
whoa.
My brother's like, he told me, I remember my little brother's like,
he didn't
what
do
just
anything.
happened?
Yeah, he
like,
didn't do anything.
He's like, no, this is, and my brother's like, no, he's not going to say nothing. And the guy is like, we don't know him. My brother's like, oh, I know him. Everything's, and my brother said it went from like, thought like we're just going to drive around, find a house.
Now we're literally
trying to killing people.
Innocent people.
Yeah.
Because let's say you had a beef with those guys, and if that is in your mind is justified based on whatever your guy's issue was, right?
Yeah.
But the random dude at the arcade, I think any reasonable, even gang members would probably, hey, this feels unreasonable, right?
Yeah, I remember my brother said it got out of hand really fast.
So they did go in and
he went in
and shoot those first three.
Yeah, he shot.
What made him not shoot the arcade guy? Do you remember?
Well, because when my brother spoke up and said like, no,
he's the one
good.
that put this. Okay, stop.
I was like, no, we can't do it. He's good. We can't just do this. Like we know him. He's not going to say nothing.
Were any of the people like catastrophically injured, or did they recover pretty good?
I guess physically they recovered, but I'm pretty sure like traumatically, like
that's a different story.
Yeah,
right?
emotionally or like yeah.
Well, it's a good thing your homie's a bad shot.
Yeah. I mean, like, what is it? That was like 91. I recently, I have a new attorney that's actually filing for an expungement, and one of the people from that original case is opposing me getting an expungement. So I guess he's still affected.
All these years later.
Yeah, but I guess that's actually could be normal. I mean, someone's a victim of crime.
Yeah, but you got to get over that shit, man. If you survived, like you're not paralyzed, and regardless, like I could see if the person was like the guy that pulled the trigger. Fuck that dude. I never want him to find peace. I never want him to have his record expunged. You're just the map guy.
It's the wrong map too, right?
Yeah, you were just the wrong map guy. Imagine if you gave the right map, maybe they would have found it on the first time around and shot it a couple times, and that would have been the end of it.
Yeah.
Oh fuck, dude! You ever think about that?
No. I remember just thinking like, this is not fair. I didn't think anything was ever gonna happen. Like the map. I wish I had a picture of the map. It was like, oh.
Yeah, it's drawn on a fucking napkin or something.
It was drawn on a Subway's napkin. Yes, that's what it was drawn on.
Jeez, dude. And so then you get arrested. You get charged.
Yes.
By this point, you have a lawyer, public defender, right?
Yes.
Who typically public defenders aren't the best. And typically public defenders will also tell you to take a plea deal.
Yes.
And that's what they told you?
Yeah, they told me to take a plea deal. So I pleaded guilty to a conspiracy to commit a crime. I was sentenced to 7 years in the California Youth Authority, which, for your listeners that may or may not know, like that Youth Authority was like the gladiator school. That is where I met and formed the core part of my gang later on.
Oh, you get out and get back into that.
Yes.
Oh, this is just getting started then. I didn't know, because I don't know your story at all.
Okay.
So Jenny told me you were incarcerated, and through that process, you kind of found yourself, and now you're helping people. Mm-hmm. I thought maybe that might be it. Huh?
No, that was just the beginning.
That's just the beginning.
Yes.
Okay, so you get sentenced to, you said 7 years?
7 years in the California Youth Authority. I went to the diagnostic. I can't remember what it was. Like they do. By that time, I had been incarcerated about a year and a half, 2 years fighting the case. So then I went to the California Youth Authority, and then when I went to my first diagnostics hearing, I think they saw, I saw in the commissioner's, like when he's reading, he's like, wait, you weren't there? And I was like, no, I wasn't there. And I told him what happened. And he's like, okay, what did you do during this time? And I told him I read, because I've always been a bookworm. I was like, oh, I read this. And did you get your high school diploma? Yeah, I got it at the juvenile hall. So he started.
So you were showing that even though you were incarcerated, you were appearing responsible.
Yeah,
like just
I guess.
On a
I guess
good
that's how I
path.
stayed productive, because my mind, I love reading, and that was my escape. So
when you said it was the gladiator program, what do you mean by that?
So the California Youth Authority at the time is like, this is the youth that they feel should go to prison, but because they're under 25, they're held. So this is like the most violent young gang members in the state of California going into this place.
Okay.
Yeah, and like,
you're obviously just
trying to fit in.
General pop, right?
Yeah, we're all there and we're trying to fit in. And it's like, I remember I remember even first stepping into juvenile hall, and they charged me as an adult, so they took me to the county jail before I was sentenced to the California Youth Authority. So I was in the juvenile section there, and on my 18th birthday, I remember that deputies came down and said, "We're singing happy birthday." And
then we're taking your ass to the adult prison?
Like, yeah, now you get to go with the big boys. So once I went up to the general pop with all the older guys, then that's when they told me, okay, like I already knew by that time, this is your group. Your group are the Asians, and this is basically your card. This is the people that you associate with and report to and all that.
And I don't have a super comprehensive understanding with it because I didn't work inside of the prisons. Mm-hmm. But if you're not part of, I don't even know if you call it a gang, but like basically
part of any type of affiliated group, then
you have to be affiliated with a group or
Yes.
you're fucked, right?
Yeah.
So there's like, just break it down what it's like inside for people that don't understand that.
So in the prisons and in the jails in California, it's called cars. So a car is like here's the Asian car. This is the whites car. This is the Southern Mexican car. This is the Crips car. This is the Bloods car. Like it's split into groups like that. So that's how it was broken down. And then when I know like these are the older Vietnamese guys. They have tattoos on them. They look cool. They seem like they know what they're doing. They're good gamblers, and everybody gets along with them. And these are the guys lacing me up, basically showing me like this is how you have to act. I mean, like I think it was like I can't remember. Within the first few months of getting onto the general population, I had already volunteered for my first mission, like to attack somebody that came in for a sex crime. And I was like, okay, let me do this. Let me earn some stripes. And
I wish I got to attack people that came in for sex crimes.
Yeah, I mean, I shared in my book, but that thing gave me nightmares. Probably.
Did it really?
Yeah. I mean, we beat this guy so bad, crushed his skull, like his eyes were popping out of it. That thing gave me nightmares.
Wow.
For years after that, like that contributed to me. Like,
did you know the extent of his sex crime?
No, I mean, I remember the officer just called down.
Oh, the officer used to tip you guys off?
Yeah, so he let what was called at the time the house mouse, like the person that like his liaison to let us know, and they came back and they let us know, and they said like, okay, this guy here came in for a sex crime, like.
So for the cops to go to the inmates with that, I bet he was a pretty nasty person.
I imagine so. Yeah. So. Wow. So once he shared that, then they were like, okay, so what do you guys want to do? They said, okay. And then me being the stupid me said, here, I'll do it. Like, I have a little sister. If someone did that to my sister, I would kill him. I'll do it. And then of course, the older guys
those are real emotions you're feeling at the time, though, too, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it was fueled by just this need to be recognized and to fit in. And like this need, like, wait, I'm not really these cool gang dudes. I'm just some kid that's lost, and I shouldn't be here. But let me just prove myself and let these guys like me more. And
how many of you guys assaulted him?
4.
Okay.
4, but I remember
just like fists and punches, or did you?
No, but then once he fell, and I think we were stomping on his head, and one of the guys climbed up on a sink and jumped with both feet and landed on his head. I remember just hearing the head split, and he did it twice. And then I remember seeing.
Did the guy live?
No, he was in critical condition. I remember. I don't know if he lived or not. And then I remember he's laying on his face, and I just see a pool of blood just like coming out from him. And then when they flipped him over, that's when I first saw this guy.
The eyes?
The eyes. It looked like a fly. They were both popped out. You could see where the skull had cracked across.
Dude, that's gnarly.
Yeah, it was the nastiest thing. Like, it was a human fly. He looked like a human fly.
Let me ask you this. Did you guys catch more charges for that? Or because it was kind of directed by the system, did they let it?
No. So the officer had said, hey, make sure you guys take care of this, but take care of it when I'm off duty. So he's like, I remember he announced, hey, okay, what I think it was like Denver Road, great, have a great weekend. I'm out for the weekend, bye. And that's when that was our time to attack him. So I remember when he came by, I was at this bunk and I was on the top bunk and he came by and I was the closest one, so I jumped off and I kicked him and that's when he fell and then the other three jumped on him. But so then after that, I think the older homies had told me, like, I had been in a few fights by that time, so I know every time when they fight, when they come check, they check your knuckles for the
signs,
the signs of a fight. And then of course when you're kicking and you're stomping, sometimes when you kick you get each other. So I remember I had blood on me, I had blood on my shoes, and I jumped in the shower, I washed it, and I just put lotion, and that removes the red marks of a fight. So two of the guys that were involved, I think they were just, when I remember came out of the shower, they were still like glorifying, talking about it. I'm like, damn, they didn't shower, they didn't wash up. Like I threw my clothes into.
They didn't
like,
try and hide shit, huh?
No, like we have buckets all around, those 5-gallon buckets. So I just threw my clothes in that and just acted like I was washing my jumpsuit. So there was nothing on it. So because there's so many jumpsuits, and those two got charged with attempted murder.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did that deputy or that officer, did they rat him out?
No, I don't think so.
Wow. It's like, this is already, your life up to this point is already a movie. So how long, because you said you got 7 years, you went in at 17, but with good time and all that, like...
No, so I think when I got to the California Youth Authority and I got interviewed by that, the commissioners at that board, preliminary board hearing, I think they saw I got kind of a raw deal and they were questioning, like, okay. And then I remember it was there, he's like, okay, you know what? I think we're going to release you.
Oh, wow.
So they cut me loose at like 2.5 years after I had been in.
So then you get out and you're 19.
Yeah, I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah, I was about 19. And then suddenly I have a group of friends.
What's that like now?
I mean, I got out and I felt like everybody knew I had been locked up. Like people saw, or some people from high school that had heard, they treated me differently. I think that there was a sense of fear in them, or I don't know. I just felt like I didn't fit once again. Like here, I don't belong again. And
well, you weren't just the napkin map guy.
Yeah.
You were in for attempted murder. Mm-hmm. You know, if people don't know the details, that sounds pretty scary.
Yeah, and I think I felt like people couldn't relate to what I had seen or been through. Like by that time I had, of course, you know, like that mission of assaulting that man and seeing what we could, like the brutal ugliness of what humans could do to each other. I'd been in many riots by that time.
What does that entail?
A lot of chaos, screaming, and people just attacking each other.
So when you say riot, is it like two rival groups are fighting each other, or is it like against the establishment? No,
it's against the. I mean, the riots. Like I had been in riots with the whites. I had been in riots against the Southern Mexicans. So it's just they put like what's called a green light on us.
Okay.
So that means attack all Asians, and it was because something happened out here in Orange County where a Vietnamese gang had shot at each other, and some of the bullets had missed, and they had hit an innocent kid coming out of a church.
Oh fuck!
So then the Southern Mexicans had put a green light on a certain Vietnamese gang, and they couldn't find out they couldn't tell who was from that gang.
So now it's just everybody.
So then they just decided to attack us. So then I remember I was in this tank. I was the only Vietnamese in there, and then the Southern Mexican. I was really close with a couple of them. So one of my friends, which was a Southern Mexican, got in a fight with this really big white guy, and then they were fighting. And then I remember they said like, okay, they were fighting, and then he kept on kicking the guy, and the guy kept on falling down. And then the Southern Mexican kept on telling him, you have to get up, you have to get up. And he kept on trying to get up, and that was my friend. So I told the shot caller, the Southern Mexican, let me jump in. He's like, no. And then finally, I guess they knew that he was losing, but they couldn't. They said, nope. And they said, jump in. That's when I jumped in. And so then after that, suddenly in that dorm, like all the whites wanted to get me for jumping in because it wasn't my deal. And it wasn't my issue, but it was like, no, but this is my friend, so let me help him. And then, but the Southern Mexicans said, no, you can't touch him. So then when that green light came down, they knew like, okay, they knew I wasn't part of that Vietnamese gang. So then I wasn't touched, but I saw other Vietnamese getting jumped at court and other things. So then I think the officers knew like, we can't let them get picked off because there wasn't that many of us. So then they just put us into they compiled us together and put us into 2 dorms. But suddenly they put 20 Vietnamese with 20 Southern Hispanics in one dorm and 20 whites. And once we go in, and we know, okay, let's attack all the Southern Hispanics because they're the ones attacking us. And then that was just wild.
Are you allowed to have, because you said one of them was your friend. What are the rules on having relationships with skinheads or blacks or whatever when you're not part of that? Like, can you eat together?
Technically,
or can you talk? Or?
Yes, technically you can't. I think that's where, like, of course, depending on where you're at and what you believe, it was later on, like, once I got a life sentence in prison and I'm understanding, wait, what is these rules that we've made for ourselves around this, and just trying to really question a bunch of that.
Well, it definitely sounds silly. Mm-hmm. Like, well, how old are you now?
How old am I? 50?
50. So, I'm turning 45 this year, so we're close, right? I think it's very normal to look back and be like, how dumb was that?
Yeah.
What were we doing? Mm-hmm. But it's bizarre that it's a bunch of young men that are incarcerated for probably relatively similar conduct. And instead of turning this into an experience where everybody could get along and like actually grow or whatever the case may be, you go in there and you're programmed to all hate each other.
Yeah.
What a strange concept. Mm-hmm. And that's been how it's been since the beginning. I assume that's probably one of the things you're combating.
Yeah, I think
going back into the jails these days.
Yeah, that's part of what our program changes. So.
Wow, which I'm excited to get into. So then you get out at 19 though, and like you said, you had friends and you were...
And the only friends I really felt connected to were the guys that were locked up with me that were getting out, and then we stayed connected, or we like kind of know each other and we know of each other, and those were the guys that actually were the ones that we formed our gang together. Okay. Yeah, so now it's like a legit gang. It's a legit gang, yeah.
And that was, you said you were 19 when that happened.
Yeah.
Huh? And then like, what would be the typical, I know you talked about like car stereos and stuff like that, but most gangs are like running dope and pimping hoes and stuff. Do you guys move into that stuff?
Yes. So, yep, that's where we got into illegal activities like that. And then it's like, okay, let's get guns, let's get counterfeit. So there was counterfeit money, there was guns, and like selling guns, selling drugs, like depending on who had the connections in each person in the gang.
Did you get good guns this time?
Oh yeah, yeah. Later on, I was like, okay. Like for me, my gun of choice later on became like the 6 Sauer. That was, everyone knew like, okay, Quan likes the 6 Sauer. So when they knew there was a 6 Sauer, I was like, okay. Yeah, those are the ones that yeah. So yeah.
Let me ask you this, because I've always been fascinated by this. Do guys in gangs actually go train with their firearms? Like, would you go out in the desert and set a target up and learn how to actually...
So my second or third arrest after getting out was when we went to Super Kmart in the morning, because we were buying a bunch of bullets, because we got a bunch of new guns. Like we had a Tech 9 that was already shaved down to become fully automatic. We had a whole bunch we were going to go into the mountains to train, to check out our new guns to make sure. Like I had extended clips on it. Because like, and the goal was, because there was a strawberry festival coming up that weekend, when we knew there was going to be other Vietnamese gangs, then we wanted to make sure we had the guns to make sure we had the most bullets there. And yeah, so
stupid kids at a strawberry festival.
Yes,
I got to have the most guns.
Yes, and with the most bullets.
So you know what's interesting is when you're in the Vietnamese gangs, all kind of, when you're doing time, you all
have to get along,
stick together.
Yes.
But as soon as you're back out on the streets, you're rival gangs again, huh? Mm-hmm. That's kind of, what a crazy concept. Yeah. And so like, you already referenced getting arrested several more times, but like, what was that process like? Just over the next couple years, just doing dumb shit like that? No major arrests?
No, guns, gang violations, getting pulled over, and then I remember getting out for the last time in '98, and I got a job at the Gallup organization, which was this is before the fame of like the Strength Finder studies and stuff like that. So then when I was working there, I got their 1998 Interviewer of the Year award. It was basically I'm just calling people to do Gallup polls.
Oh wow!
Yeah, but I was like
man, gangbangers making sandwiches and doing Gallup polls.
Gallup polls, yeah, and I was working for Microsoft's exit interviews for Bill Gates. Like he contracted with the Gallup poll, so I was one of 4 interviewers nationally that got to call Microsoft engineers on their way out to do their exit interviews.
Dude, let me ask you this: because you're now very, very well versed in the gang life and crimes and drugs in prison, but you're also working and you're interviewing at Microsoft. Was there a part of you that was like, okay, I'm going to be done with this shit and put it behind me? Was that always something that was in the back of your mind, or maybe even the forefront of your mind?
I think there's a perfect segue because, like, it was always part of, like, this is not really, like, I want something better for my life. I want to be able to do something better. And so then at Gallup, after I got that recognition, they asked me, like, hey, take this. We want to promote you to become a supervisor. You'll be supervising 300 interviewers at this site. We want you to take this interview. So it was a management position interview. And at Gallup at the time, well, I think it still is it's all personality-based interviews. Like, what color do you think of when you're hear this word, and when you're driving home at night, what do you think here? So it's
like a psychological exam.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So
okay.
they did the whole interview, and then about 3-4 weeks later, they called me in the office. They say, "Hey, we're sorry, but you're not a fit." So that's
because you had a criminal history.
No.
Oh.
It was just a psychological thing, whatever they do. So they do the whole personality-based thing, and that's what. That's just how they phrased it. Is you're not a fit. But for me, like, not a fit, like, oh,
yeah, that's
what the
your
hell?
whole fucking life.
It triggered something in me. I remember I didn't tell my girlfriend at the time about it. I just remember I went down to the bar, got drunk. Within that week or a week after, grabbed a gun, went up to LA with some of my friends for a club. Came out, some of my friends had gotten in a fight with a rival gang, and I said, where are they at? Let's follow them. And then ended up shooting and killing a man by the name of Minuin, and shot and injured 3 other people.
And you're, what, 21 at the time now?
I think, like, by that time, 23? 22, 23.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, man, you're trying to get on the right path. You got that bad news, and it just sent you spiraling.
Oh, yeah. I think, like, I
you
didn't understand that back then, but it's like, okay, this is a part of my life that I feel like a failure, but here's a part of this other part of my life. This is where I could get recognition, and this is where and this is where I can at least not be bad at this.
You know, like, prison has different motivations for what they claim, the reasons they incarcerate people. Like, some of them are just purely public safety, right? Mm-hmm. But another aspect of prison is the deterrence.
Yeah.
Of, like, hey, if you fuck up again, you know what it's like to go to prison for 2 years. Mm-hmm. You've already felt that and experienced that. Did that ever take any agency in your mind?
No, I would say no. I mean, like, there was a part of me that felt like this is, even, it feels weird to even say this. Now when I go back into prison, there's a weird, comfortable...
Oh, it's Stockholm Syndrome type shit.
Yeah, there's a weird, comfortable place. Like, you know what? I actually feel at home here. These are my brothers. This is why I continue liking to go back in, but I get to go home, but it's like I feel very comfortable in there.
Well, some of your most formative years were spent in there.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So then, what was the guy's name that you shot?
Minh Nguyen.
What were they a rival gang?
They were just a different Vietnamese gang up in LA. Like, so when they hit, so I don't even know what happened. Like, what I heard later was my friends from my gang were walking and they were trying to back up, and some words were exchanged or something, but they ended up fighting with each other, and then the fight got broken up. And then when I came out, they said they had just gotten in a fight with somebody, and then when we went to go across the street to pour gas in the car, and then some of our homegirls had called and said, hey, those same guys are here now at the 7-Eleven. So I could see across the street. This is like the first flip phone when it first came out.
Yep.
So I had called and we were talking, and I said, oh, I could see them. And then they said, oh, yeah. They said, where are your homeboys at? I said, okay, you know what? Get on the freeway. Let them follow you. So they followed the girls, and we followed them. And so they followed the girls, and we followed them for about 20 miles. So that's from Hollywood coming back towards Orange County.
Okay.
These guys are from LA. So I did the shooting right at the interchange at the 710 and 5.
So that's something you drive by all the time still to this day.
I remember when I came home.
Oh, what's that like?
At first it was like, okay, this is part of my journey, is I have to own this. And then it was one day that I had actually, because I remember even reading in the police report that they had pulled over on the 5 at the Triggs exit into the Denny's, and I saw the Denny's, and they called the police from the phone. So when I came home after the murder, this is like 16, 17 years later, there was no phone there, but I did pull in to that area just the one day just to see, okay, I was responsible for just to feel like, okay, when I drive down the 5 and I see the Triggs exit, I say, oh, here's the Denny's, I'll pull over. And I go, okay, this is where, in the police report, I had read that he had been hit like 3-4 times in the chest and upper back. So I guess by that time his lungs had collapsed, and then that's where he died in the parking lot.
Wow, dude. Man, that's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
So then you just continue home.
I continued home.
And were you even concerned, or did you just not give a fuck at that point?
I didn't care. At the time, I would have to say, like, it was a very callous way of looking at the world. Like, so I was just like, okay, that's what they get. And then I remember in the car, I was driving, and then the girls from the other car had called. They say, hey, that car's not following us anymore. And that's when I realized they didn't even hear the gunshots going off.
Oh, shit.
So then they said, hey, they're not following. Let's go meet up to eat. Let's go to this cafe. And I told them, I'll drop you guys off I wanted everybody out of my car. And I told the people that were in my car, like, don't talk about this. Don't let them know that we did anything. Nobody knows. Leave it at that.
And were you the only shooter?
Yes.
Okay.
And then...
You were driving too?
No.
Oh,
somebody else was driving.
Got it.
Somebody else was driving. And then it was the next day was one of the girls had called, I guess, because before we did the shooting, those guys had taken down her license plate. Oh,
and it was in the police report. They came across that.
No. So they had given it to the police, and then they end up saying, these girls in this car know who did the shooting. And at trial, they were saying, oh, we just happened to write down the license plate because we were just wanted to report to police. These girls knew the guys that beat us up, but it wasn't that. They
were following them.
They were following, and they wrote it down because then that's how Asian gangs, because they have so many similar cars, they write it down so that they know the car. The next time they see that car with that license plate, then they'll shoot them. So that's what they were planning. But
so I'll tell you, bro, I mean, as dark as it may feel, like, who knows where that would have went? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think about that. I did a lot of deployments to Iraq, and I've shot human beings. And I've had these thoughts about, like, well, if this didn't happen, maybe that would have happened. Which, I mean, coulda, shoulda, woulda is a terrible thing to do in the first place, because it doesn't ever lead you anywhere good. But at the same time, it's like, man, they were playing the same game you were playing.
Yeah, they were.
They just were on the losing end of it that night.
Yeah.
So then you get arrested. What was that arrest like?
Yeah, that's when the police are kicking in the door.
Yeah.
Flashbang grenades. They had the Humvees out front.
Whoa.
Yeah, they came in with full body gear. Laid me down because they were.
I bet that was fucking terrifying.
Terrifying for I think mostly for my mom and my baby sister at the time. They took me and my brother. My brother, he heard the doors kicking in, so he had actually grabbed his golf club and ran out. And then when they said police, then he laid it down. And
was your brother still involved in this stuff, or was he?
So my brother was in a different car that night. He was involved in the original fight. He was in a different car, and his car got lost on the freeway.
Okay.
So he was arrested, but by that time, like, we all knew, like, okay, we're remaining silent. And I thought, of all people, one of the girls had told, but it was one of my homeboys that had opened his mouth and said, "Oh, Quan did the shooting. This is what happened." He had already gave information. So when they arrested us, it was a gang sweep for like several murders that they blamed on our group. So mine being one of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy is being on the other side of this, because I kicked lots of doors in LA County, and it's always mom and grandma and like babies and stuff that are completely not involved with what's happening.
Yeah.
But you're right. They suffer the fear and the consequences of that.
Yeah.
So then you obviously got arrested and charged.
I was arrested. I was charged. They charged me for the death penalty. Yeah.
Oh, they really?
Yeah. So it was Orange County and LA County sheriffs kicked in my door, and then they took me up to LA County, and then they held us at Norwalk first, and then they were pulling people in for interviews, and then they pulled me in. By that time, I was like, I have nothing to say, and then.
Because you knew how the game was played at this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then it was later on, even reading the paperwork, it was like, oh, look, the girls already knew. They exercised their right to remain silent. They pled the fifth, exercised the right to remain silent. So like, oh, I'm good. And then next thing I know, I said, they're trying me for the death penalty. And they're like, what? And I told my attorney, like, what evidence do they have? And he's like, oh, they have a
witness statement.
And then it was like, oh.
Were they ever able to corroborate other evidence through ballistics or anything like that? Or didn't? I guess they didn't need to, huh?
Well, I guess they would have, but the gun was already broken down. When I knew it was somebody had died, I already got rid of the gun.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So so I was tried for the death penalty, but by that time, because I had coached witnesses, I had got rid of evidence, but they found me guilty of second-degree murder.
And that was a trial by the jury?
I went to trial.
Okay.
I went to trial, and the jury did not believe that I was the shooter. So I got on the stand and I lied. I said I wasn't the shooter, and I blamed it on the guy that was snitching on me.
Oh, wow.
And they only charged him and me. No, they only charged me. They didn't charge him, and they didn't charge anybody else that was in the car.
So you were not found guilty
of the murder? Yeah, I was found guilty of a felony murder. Like the DA had argued, even if you don't think Quan did the shooting or not, he was there. He's just as equally guilty.
Okay, so it's almost like a conspiracy type connection to it. Mm-hmm. But they didn't think you actually were the guy that pulled the trigger.
No, the jury did not believe I was the person that pulled the trigger.
Have you ever been apprehensive about bringing that part up?
Well, I mean, that's going to be part of the journey, because the story I shared, because it was at my first parole hearing when I went in and I told them, you know what, I lied at trial. I did do this.
Oh, you owned it way back then.
No, I didn't own it until I went to the board.
Okay, yeah, but I'm saying even before you got out.
Yes.
That you knew that was part of the process.
I didn't know. It was just by that time I was like, what? Yeah, I guess that's part of the why, part of it, like, the story in my memoir of why I owned it, and I felt like this is where true freedom is.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So then you didn't get charged as the shooter, but you still got found guilty of second-degree murder.
Yes.
And then what was the sentence?
15 years to life.
Okay.
Which, as you know, but some of your listeners, like the state of California had not paroled one single lifetime prisoner since 1977.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I actually didn't know that. Yeah, because I was working with the feds up here. So the state stuff I'm not very familiar with.
The states had not paroled one single lifetime prisoner since 1977. So when I went up, I knew life sentence is a life sentence. I'm dying in here.
Wow. And again, nerves, fear, regret, or were you just like, hey, this is what it is? Well, you said you were kind of comfortable going back, huh?
Yeah, comfortable. But I think also they're so disconnected from any type of emotional literacy. So it's fear, I don't know what that is. Anger, regret, maybe anger, but I'm not an angry person because I'm not screaming, but come on, I thought it was okay to shoot somebody because I got turned down for a job promotion and I didn't know how to process it. So here's a way that I could take it out on somebody without saying I'm angry and I'm screaming, and I hide it behind a gang, but it's really my inability to process failure.
Wow. Because that's just your actions were a direct result, like you said, of the anger that you felt.
Yes.
not getting that job.
Yeah.
And then it just so happened that my homie's got in a fight. Watch
here's
this.
my excuse. Yes.
Yeah, watch this.
Uh-huh.
Man, that's weird.
But I had no self-understanding at that time. It was like later on through years of like self-discovery and reflection and
So then what year did you go down for this one then?
99.
99.
Like within a year after getting out from the youth authority, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what did that, I mean, we could probably do another 2 hours on that experience alone. But like,
yeah, like high level, I mean, I think I would have to say like for the first 10, 11 years, there was no sense of remorse. It was like this narrative I told myself. It was my life or theirs. This is what happens in the gang crime. This is what happened. So I just still lived the criminal lifestyle. I still got involved with the everything criminal inside prison, whether it's the drug trade, whether it was tobacco, cell phones later on, like all of that, like just getting involved. Like, okay, this is how I'm going to live in prison because this is what prison is about. But like I did share, like I've always been a bookworm, and books always gave me different ways to escape. And because I'm a bookworm, I always go to acknowledgements, read the whole back, and who influenced them and what other books. So that was my way of escape. So it was around that time because I've always been fascinated with books on entrepreneurship. I mean, like even in 2002 is when I had a subscription to the Wall Street Journal, and that was when I was reading about puts. And I used to look at my puts back then, and they're like, "This is what's cool about the stock market." And I was talking to people like, "You square, you geek, what is that?" But I'm like, "This is something fascinating that I was
like, wait, one day I'll show you."
Yeah, so it was like reading books on entrepreneurship, and then around that same time is when I got a letter from my brother that I saw a picture of my niece for the first time, and it's his daughter, and it was a baby, but she looked exactly like him as a kid. So it took me back. I started questioning, like, is this it for me? Am I meant to just die in prison? Like, how did my life end up like this? Around that same time.
Oh, because now he's moving out of that phase into a new phase.
Yeah, so he's a father. He had become a very successful real estate broker, and then had his own home. And like he used to visit me and just like, okay, like just be okay with your life. Like I'll take care of you. So he was doing very well out here.
Did you just accept you were going to die in there then? Or did you hold on to some type of hope that some way, somehow?
Well, I think there was always hope in the back of my mind. I don't know, but I wouldn't express it. But I think it was just that's the only way that you could cope with. Like, wait, I didn't want to face that. Like, damn, I'm gonna die in here. So, nah, you know what? I'm just gonna live. I'm gonna live the way I want. I'm gonna gamble. I'm gonna work out. I'm going to hustle, and I'm going to still do things that give me a sense of recognition, a sense of belonging, a sense of this is where I'm supposed to be. I remember even in the midst of being in the gang is where I suddenly felt like, I finally found this is where I'm exactly supposed to be. These are my people, and I finally fit in for once. And that's really how I felt for quite a while of my life in the middle of like a life sentence with the gangs and all that. So
wow.
Yeah, so I think, but then I got a letter finding out that my father's father passed away, and then it made me think, wait, I think by that time I was like 35, 36, same age around my father had passed away, and I was like, look what my father had created in his 35 years on earth. And I contrast that with what, like my own path of like death and destruction, like, and now I'm gonna die in here near my family legacy, and this is it. Like, the fuck did I do with my life?
Wow. How did it? I know you said that your brother was still staying present with you, writing you letters. What about like your mom and your sister?
Oh yeah, I think my mom was the main one. My sister too, but I think my mom was like, we had phone calls every Sunday.
Okay.
Just called her. There's like 15 minutes. That was like our thing every Sunday.
That sounds like a mom that loves you. I'm just
yeah.
going to throw that out there.
Yeah, of course. Even though she wasn't.
Yeah, even though she won't say it.
Yeah, she wouldn't say it. But
Yeah.
yes. Every Sunday we have a 15-minute phone call, and I got suddenly. I don't know how, but then some books I became fascinated on books of the saints, and in particular stories about saints that had failed in their lives, but then you had gone on to create these legacies or these amazing orders for the church. And I got really drawn into those stories, And then, of course, that leads me into books on like spirituality and then personal development and mindfulness and meditation and all these other things. And then I would have to say became a perfect storm because like it was one day, it was just on the prison yard early in the morning. I was walking out for a doctor's appointment, my head filled with like teachings and meditations, and then I like even like stories of like monks that go off into the mountains or into the thing and just this, and I go, why can't I view prison as why do I have to view it as punishment? Why can't I view this place as a place to remake myself, even if I'm gonna die in here? And of course, the answer comes back from the universe. Like you can. Like I remember that moment. Like that, the sun was barely coming up over the hills at Solano. I could feel the warmth from it, and in the little blades of grass, I saw the individual drops of dew, and up above me in the razor wire, I heard a sparrow chirping. And I tell everyone, like, the sparrows have probably been chirping my entire prison term.
That's the first time you heard them.
But it's the first time I heard it. And it was that day that I would have to say, like, the awakening began. Like, then I noticed, like, wait, these are just all human beings here. We're on this journey. Some of them much further along than me. Some of them not even awakened yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that opened my eyes. And the very first thing I did 25 years after my father passed away is I checked into therapy and I began the grieving and mourning process and talking about my father's death and how that contributed to like the way I saw the world and some of my beliefs, which then got me fascinated with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's model. So I'm reading all her books on grief and loss and mourning, and then suddenly I see, wait, there's all these men around me that are unable to grieve, properly grieve, whether that's a wife or a family member that has passed on or that has left them, children that have grown up, or something even seemingly regular for prison routine as being transferred from one prison to another. But what's really happening? They're getting uprooted, losing friendships, and not able to say, I miss my friends, and go into a new prison and have to make new relationships. So it's like all these men around me are unable to properly grieve. So then I put together the syllabus and I submitted it to the prison psychologist who loved it. So we created the prison's first ever grief and loss group. And it was in that group that I saw like men being able to begin healing by openly crying and shedding tears. And then that made me feel like even more alive, like, holy shit.
Wow.
This feels meaningful. This feels fulfilling. And then suddenly it's a place where in my entire life, like I never felt fulfilled or to have any sense of meaning. But then that got me into books on like, wait, what other groups can I do? So I'm fascinated on group psychodynamics, childhood development. I'm reading all this stuff on how to facilitate groups and how to create
So you
groups.
developed a PhD level knowledge of all this stuff in prison.
Well, I don't know, because it's not a diploma, but I'm reading stuff and I'm applying it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
Probably better than a diploma because you're reading it, you're consuming it, you're learning it, and then what?
Living and applying it.
You're in an environment where, like, you can apply it right now.
Yes, and that's exactly what it was. For me, it felt like, oh, man, how fortunate am I to be able to apply and learn and become a better person, and to apply and learn these things. Is like every morning I used to wake up, what lessons are coming for me from the universe today? And that's where I'm creating other groups, I'm getting involved in other groups, helping to create other groups, and suddenly here I am in some forgotten corner, some discarded corner of the world, but yet I felt like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and I'm making true meaning for my life, and I'm feeling fulfilled. Even if I'm gonna die in here, I feel absolutely free. And that's exactly how I felt for like the last 4 years of my life sentence. And then I go into the parole board for the very first time, and that's when I told them, okay, I lied at trial. I am the one that pulled the trigger. I meant to kill Mr. Minuin. They're asking me how many shots. 3 shots, 5 shots? No, 15 shots. I unloaded the whole clip.
Clip.
Yeah. And I ejected the clip and I put it in the second one, and I was waiting for them to come up around. And I gave them the full story. And I remember the commissioner, she was very uncomfortable with my truth. She was very uncomfortable. She was really into me. And then...
Oh, because you were... Is it because you were becoming kind of like a go-to guy? in the prison, helping people
Well,
and doing.
yes. So a weird, funny story, because as I'm reading all these books, so in the prisons, California prison system, when someone goes to the parole board, they're issued a parole hearing transcript, and these transcripts, it's these maroon folders, and nobody ever shares their transcript. Like you don't ask somebody for the parole transcript. That's like, you're not supposed to ask someone for their transcript. No. So nobody ever talks about it. Like,
Okay.
everyone is just issued them at the parole hearing, and nobody really talks about the board. I'm just hearing like the parole process is terrible. And one of my friends that him and I used to love trading books. He would always leave a book on my bed with a cookie, and I know, oh, that's Bobby. He always One day he's like, hey, I think you should read my parole transcripts. Sure. And he brings like a stack of them. There's like 7 for every hearing he went through for like, I think the last 30, 40 years. And when I open him reading it, it dawned on me, I go, wait, what he told me and what all these men around here are saying happened at the board and what's actually really happening are 2 different realities. Like, yes, they believe it, but I'm starting to see it. And I noticed the same theme in the parole transcript. We're not here to retry the case. We're only here to gauge your current suitability. And they always preface
to see if you're a danger to society,
yes.
Correct?
So then when I'm reading it, I was like, Bobby, I think I know why you're getting denied. I can help you come home. So he sat with me. We started talking. And at the time, I don't know it's coaching. I'm just talking him through this stuff.
So, bro, you're a psychologist now. You're a lawyer.
And we're going through this, and then one of my other friends sees, and he's like, "What are you guys doing?" I'm like, "Oh, we're going through a thing." So he gives me his transcript. I was like, "Listen, oh," and then people are like, "What are you guys doing? Like, what's Quan doing to you guys?" "Oh, Quan's helping us prepare for the board." And they're like, "How can Quan help you prepare for the board when he's never gone to the board? Like, how's he gonna help you?" So G goes to the parole board
and gets paroled
and is found suitable, and
wow.
suddenly the floodgates open. Like,
yeah,
what
you're
the
the man
just
now.
happened here? And then I'm seeing like, damn it, I knew it. Like, this makes sense, and this things started clicking in my mind. I know the way out. So then I made it like I know like the guys that used to sit across from me, they're really like, their goal is to go home, which is a great and noble goal. But my goal is to get their mindset to this place where like, there's this much bigger world, whether it's in here or it's here, but the world is inside your heart and in your head. Like, let's open this.
Yeah.
Like, let's remove this prison that's holding you back. Not the physical prison, but everything else that's holding you back. Like, what made you go down this path? So their goal is sitting with me, okay, Quan's going to get me home. But my goal is like, no, my goal is to get them released before they even go home in their mind. So, like, there were guys, like, over those last 4 years, I think I helped like 14, 15 men go home from the parole board, which is like, it's not
unheard of.
Yeah, but then once I came home, like my goal when I was first approached to write the book is like, wait, here is a way that I could really help people at scale and can really share. So that's why, and I didn't have this intention at first, but it was like in writing the book, I used to have to refer to my own parole transcripts. But I was like, this is too heavy, makes it too dense, and I want this thing to move lightly. And then about 30% into writing my rough draft, I was like, why don't I just begin the beginnings of the chapters of my book with the actual transcripts? So it's like,
they can get the real scoop, exactly what happened.
Presiding commissioner, so you were born in Vietnam. Inmate Huynh, yes sir. And then you moved to Provo, Utah. Yes, sir. And then I could go into the story. And then that gave me a vehicle to be able to tell the story in a way that I could just share little snippets, but then yet from there I could compress time and pull everything together, and that made everything move much better for the memoir.
So the book's goal was to, I know we're jumping ahead a little bit, but the book's goal was to help people that are incarcerated free their mind.
Yeah.
Not necessarily like, does the book help them understand the parole board too? Is there like a technical side of it too?
There's a technical side, but I think it's more, it's not a technical side because it's more, it's my form of the truth. Because remember, in California's prisons, they don't share the transcripts. So for me to actually share, this is my version of the truth right here. And this is the actual truth, is the actual transcripts right here. These 4 sentences to begin.
So you're getting buy-in from guys that understand the system right out of the gates. I mean, what is that? It's a form of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's something we don't talk about. I'm talking about it.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one thing I did learn as I was facilitating groups when I was in there is men felt most connected when I'm sharing of my own failures, of my own vulnerabilities, not like when I'm up there as a facilitator teaching them.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, like, you know, like I might not agree or I might not totally understand why he sees the world this way, but I can share, okay, I remember when I kind of thought like this, and then I share the mistakes that I had along the way, and that usually resonates with them much more. So even when I was writing my book, that's the way I leaned into, like, let me share my own failures along the way.
What's the name of the book again?
It's called Sparrow in the Razor Wire.
Sparrow in the Razor Wire. All right, and I'll put a link in it in the show notes below for people that want to. Do you have a direct website or just like an Amazon link?
It's on Amazon. It's on Audible. It's on my website too. It's sparrowandtherazorwire.com.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll definitely add that in below for people that are interested. When you started these groups, and I think you said the first modality of healing that you kind of focused on was grief. Did you notice the racial aspect of prison change when you started leaning into that kind of stuff?
I just saw everybody as a human being.
No, but I'm saying the people that would attend, would it be like, hey, we don't care about all these rules and all these cliques. It's like Quan's healing us. Was everybody welcome? Was it kind of received like that?
Everybody was welcome. I think in prison, I think that last prison I got to was Solano, so it was known as like the graveyard for lifers. Like this is where you go to die.
Oh,
as a
so
lifer.
that shit probably kind of fizzles out a little bit anyways,
so
huh?
people were, when I got there in 07, yeah, it was 07 I got there. I remember I ran a gambling racket, so I was
You're still doing, doing some of the criminal shit.
Before, this is before the Sparrow and the Razor Wire moment.
Yeah, of course.
But then, because I was Asian, I think a real competitive advantage of being an Asian is because I could cross racial lines. Because like, there's like in the California prisons, mostly the whites and the Southern Hispanics against the blacks. So we were the ones like could be.
You were kind of a chameleon, huh?
Yeah, so I could go on both sides. I could sell to both sides, and then because we have the parlay ticket, who doesn't like to gamble? Like who doesn't like to watch NFL football, right? Like the draft yesterday, I missed it. So then we're selling parlay tickets, and then so then that was able to cross a bunch of different racial lines, and then people just knew each other. They knew me, and then I think one of the best compliments I got was, I remember when I was found suitable, one of the guys like, if you could get found suitable, any of us could get found suitable, because they knew like the dirt I was up to. Like I had gotten in trouble when I was in there, when I was doing all the bad stuff. So that was one of the cool things to like yes.
When you said you read a bunch of books on grief, was there any that stood out to you that was like the primary one you would recommend to people?
Any by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, but I think her main one is on grief and dying.
Okay.
That's a good one, yeah.
Because I can tell you, as I'm listening to you tell your story, there's so many parallels to like my peers that are in the military, my peers that are in law enforcement. And you know what's interesting is you find guys, I would say, that are living this life of pain and suffering. 35-ish, 40-ish is when I feel like a lot of men are at that point where if they're going to wake up, that's kind of the phase of their life that they step up and they say, hey, like, there's more out there than this.
Yeah.
Because I know the veteran community, a lot of guys have moved into a lot of different healing modalities. So to hear that that's roughly the age you were at in prison, it's interesting to me, because I think that's probably just a natural progression of being a man that's lived hard, has seen some shit, and now you're growing into yourself. You're finding yourself.
Yeah.
So, man. So then you start these programs. What is it? Are you getting like roomfuls of people, or is it just like 3 guys at a time, or like paint a picture for that?
I mean, like I think especially it kind of became like there were other men that were also along their own journeys of like healing and self-discovery.
Oh, so it became like...
Yeah, it became like a really cool thing where there's like this community of people like of trying to find ourselves, and then it's like there's other groups getting started, and then we're joining other groups, and then so like, I mean, when I did a victims awareness group, like me and one of my good friends, Ralphie, there's probably like 25, 30 men joining us for a 12-week group.
Wow.
And we just run it over and over. Then we're part of the what other groups were we part of? There's so many, like the Alternatives to Violence Project. There's 35, 40 people over a weekend. There's volunteers from the streets coming in, working with me, and having them acknowledge to me, like, oh, yeah, you're great. And I mean, like, it's funny, on my bio, it says, Quan Huynh has been described as a mighty warrior, a magician, and a mountain of goodness, right? Those words came from a volunteer that came in with me during the Alternatives to Violence Project, and we had these sheets that we fill out to kind of write like words of encouragement or affirmation to each other. And she had wrote to me, Quan, you are a mighty warrior, a magician, and a mountain of goodness. You are one of the greatest treasures of my life. And when I remember reading like how that felt to me.
Oh, bro, I feel it right now, dude.
Yeah.
Like, what a gift to receive.
Yeah. So I held on to that. I still have that sheet upstairs with all the other ones. And then I remember one day when people just asked for my bio, and I like, I'm gonna put this like in it. So I just hold it into my bio all day.
Wow, dude. Do you think, because it sounds like as you started to have these, I don't know if you call them awakenings or just awareness of self-development and self-growth, was there already a culture of this happening at all, or did you kind of pave this path to open this up to people?
No, there were other guys. So I think for, you know, that saying like when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the teachers were probably there all around, and I did not see, like, there were always men. Like, there was this group of guys, these old school lifers, the ones that were already starting to do the fight. Like earlier when I shared, like, there was not a life-term prisoner paroled since 1977. It was in 2007, 30 years later, it was a woman life prisoner that had fought her case to the Supreme Court named Sandra Lawrence, who fought it, and she said, what's the difference between a life without possibility and a life with possibility? Because it doesn't look like California is noticing any difference. Mm-hmm. So that's when the court started reviewing it, and that's when these guys were already back in 2007 saying, hey, the courts are finally reviewing this. There is possibilities. You have to demonstrate suitability at the board. That went over my head, so I wasn't ready for none of that. But then when I stumbled across Bobby and G and was able to help them with that, and with my own self-understanding in my building, then I seen other guys like, oh yeah, this is, you're on the right path. So then it's like, then suddenly it just builds into other groups and other buildings. Yeah.
Wow. So then it comes up for your own parole board.
Yeah.
And you're already well versed from all the people that you've helped. And then what was that experience like? So, because it wasn't the one. You mentioned the one where you said, hey, I was the shooter, I did this. Mm-hmm. Was that the same one you ended up getting released on?
Nope.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I was denied 5 years parole on that one. And I remember the commissioners like, I've never seen anybody as arrogant as you. You just exude holiness, and you think who do you think you are that you just do this work and you just think you're better? And I remember thinking like, damn, am I that still ugly of a person and so unaware of it? Like, what is going on?
She mistook the person that you're growing into as someone you were pretending to be. Yeah. Don't you think?
Yeah. So
she thought it was an act, but it's not an act.
Yeah. And then I remember I went back to the yard, and people on the yard were like, see, Quan doesn't know nothing. If he knew, he would have got paroled. Like, they gave him a 5-year denial. Like, I remember at the time my aunt had wrote me a letter, because I think my aunt's always been a super researcher, and I think she was looking, and it said less than 1% of California's prisoners have been released. So she wrote me this letter saying, hey, I'm very concerned for your mental health. You shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. You have family members that love you, will take care of you. You should just live. And
you have to believe, though.
That was the exact letter I wrote back to her. I said, okay, I understand that this is what you're saying. I understand that you're concerned for my mental health. I am absolutely okay. And if I am content or going to be okay with this, like, if I don't believe in myself, who's ever going to believe in me?
Yeah.
They gave me a 5-year denial. This is 2013. I guarantee you I will be home before 2018.
Wow, dude.
I remember I wrote her that letter.
Does she still have that?
No, she didn't. I had asked her when I wrote my book.
Yeah,
she,
give me
she
that
looked
letter,
all
dude.
over. Yeah, that would have been so. Because I would have put that in my book too.
Because, bro, I mean, I talk about this on my show a lot. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm a martial artist, a veteran, police officer. I got guys on the podcast like Newsom or guys that are spiritual leaders. It doesn't matter what you're doing in life. The power of belief and manifestation in athletes, in everybody.
Yeah.
It keeps resurfacing, and the top performers all come back to the power of manifestation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, regardless if you had an actual knowing of that or not, just the energy around that is like, no, this is what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So then, literally, it's a 5-year
denial
break, and then you're back at parole.
That's what it is. So then, also another weird thing, a weird culture of prison is they always believe like, okay, well, everybody does this, so you can't do it. So then, they said when you get a 5-year denial, you have to wait at least 3 years to file what's called a 1045, and then the 1045 is just a basically straightforward paper that says like, what were you denied? Why are you petitioning to advance your hearing? So then I remember when guys filled out, they put like a 30-40 page packet together of why they did. And when I put mine, it was a 1-page paper. I filed it at 13 months after I got denied. And it said like, why were you denied? And I went back into the thing and said I was denied because of this. My prison write-ups, this. Being on C status, deemed like a program failure, like 2.5 years before I went to the parole board. And then they said, so why are you requesting petition to advance? And I said, I'm respectfully requesting a petition to advance because I have addressed everything that the parole board brought up. Please see attached. And it was like, they said, why did I still have cell phones? And I just put a book report. There was like 5 things I attached. That was it. It was like bare bones. And they accepted
like
it.
Clear, yet still comprehensive enough to just outline all the facts.
Yeah. So then the belief in the yard was like, well, they're like, wait, how did they get called back on a early? Oh, they're just going to bring him back early and they're going to deny him because once you're denied for your 1045, you have to wait at least 3 years before you can file a second one.
Oh, okay.
So the belief was like, they're calling me back to deny me. And I walked back into that boardroom 14 months after. The same commissioner that the woman was now the presiding commissioner, so she's the head commissioner now.
But you also have 14 more months of running your programs, teaching people, helping people. At some point, that starts to take notice, or she would start to take notice.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it though, because it was inside that hearing. She was like, I was like, damn, she's even worse this time
was she
around.
really?
She was digging into me. She's like, all you do is talk. You're like a robot. Da, 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 da. And she, you don't just shut up. And I was just sitting there
Do
like,
people fucking talk to each other like that?
no, but she does. So I think she's trying to trigger me to see what I would say, and I didn't know. So I
she's
was like,
making you take another psychological exam.
Yeah, and I remember even the district attorney is like, oh, he's talking about remorse. He's talking about that he feels so bad. If he feels so terrible about his mistakes, why did he ask the board to petition for him to go home early 14 months after? And when he was saying that, I was like, damn it, he's right. And I go, no, he's not right. And I was like, you know what? Like, I could sit here, I go, yes, I killed somebody. That's going to be with me for the rest of my life. But I could sit here and feel sorry for myself and say, I don't deserve to go home. I don't deserve to go home to build anything to my communities. I don't deserve to be a beacon of hope for the men that show that I am doing something. Like, if the purpose of rehabilitation is for us to be rehabilitated, there's some form of redemption, then I believe this is why I put in my petition. So that happened, and then I remember I detailed it in my memoirs. Like my attorney was like, before the hearing, she's like, I hate this commissioner. She always drags on the longest ones. But and so in the middle of, she's like, I need to go to the restroom. So we paused the hearing and we go out and pause. She's like, I'm gonna keep on calling restroom breaks every time she does this. If she tries to dig in you too much, right? So she called like 2. So then second one, she's like, okay, this is what we're gonna do. This is not fair. It's obvious she's going to deny. She's fucking screwing you over. This is not fair. I don't know. Or you shouldn't be taking this like this. You're so calm and you're just answering, and this is not fair. They're screwing you. So this is what I'm gonna do. I don't feel good anymore.
Oh, just
I feel
canceling
sick.
it.
So we're gonna walk back in
using
there,
the system.
and I'm gonna say I feel sick, and we're gonna go back, and they're gonna cancel today's hearing, and we're gonna get back on the calendar in about 90 to 180 days, and we'll go back in and get a commissioner that's fair. And then part of me was like, okay, let's do this. Let's fuck them. And I'm like, wait, you know what? No, let's go back up in there. And she's like, no, you don't. You're gonna get denied parole today. And I was like, I was here to hold myself to be found accountable. I wasn't here to be found suitable. I'm here to be held accountable today.
So you don't want, that felt like running, huh?
It felt for me like this felt like it's, what am I going to do? I'm going to go back to the yard and I'm going to just say like my attorney felt sick, but I know what's really, and I'm going to live with myself and say this. Like this doesn't feel right to me and who I am and what I'm doing and like what I'm professing to be. And I go, this doesn't feel right. I go, no, we're going to go back in there. And she looked at me. She's like,
don't do it.
You're fucking crazy. And we went back in there and then we closed out the hearing. I read my remorse statement and they came back and I remember like we're in the thing that they're reading this legal stuff and I'm just sitting there and they said, and
man,
we
like the weight of the world on your shoulders waiting for that moment.
And and then they said, we find that the prisoner is no longer dangerous. And I looked at her and she looked at me like, what the fuck? They found me suitable.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. As soon as they read that line or before the conclusion of the hearing, did the commissioner ever give you like a handshake, a head nod, like any positive energy?
She said one key thing to me at the very end. Like, we got done. She didn't shake my hand, but she came up and she's like, let me ask you one thing. And I say, what? She was, has it ever occurred to you that the reason why they didn't advance you to that management position was because of your prior criminal convictions? I was like, no, I've never even thought of that. She's like,
that's what it was, huh?
I don't know. But she had said that, yeah.
Well, I thought that too when you told the story.
That's why it was funny when you said that.
The cop in me, right?
Yeah.
Like the same, because like a lot of positions that I've got require a very comprehensive background research, and as the world gets smaller and everything's on the internet, that becomes easier and easier. So that's the first thing that I thought too. Man, that's interesting. So you get out and then you hit the ground running, continuing with all the programs that you built while you were in.
I continued with programming. I mean, one of the programs I was involved in is this nonprofit that I now work for. It was Defy Ventures. So their mission is to shift mindsets to give people with criminal histories their best shot at a second chance.
Which that is such, I mean, I talk about it on the show a lot because, again, being a deputy down here, understanding the gang culture, you see a lot of kids that, sure, they're doing dumb shit. A lot of them are also just wrong place, wrong time. Or making decisions, exactly all the stuff we talked about, trying to fit in, like feeling lost. Like, I think there has to be, okay, you did this is your time. I think most of us can agree on that. But once you get out, we should be in agreement that it's like, okay, now it's back to life.
Yeah.
Instead of, oh, you can't do this and you can't do that, and this employer doesn't want you, and now you have these like different restrictions, and even your constitutional rights are different. And it's kind of like, do we want to rehabilitate people and send them back out to become productive citizens, or do we want them just to be a part of the revolving door of the prison industrial complex?
Yeah.
And I love hearing that, like, this is a mission that you're sticking with and that you're charging forward with. It's important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, that's what I get to do for my work is I get to see it on a daily basis where somebody interviews, lands a job, pending background check comes back, they rescind the thing, and like usually my pitch to an employer is like, I'm not asking you guys to give a job to anybody. What I'm asking you to do is do your rounds of interview, and if you settle on your best possible candidate, if it's one of our candidates, be willing to have additional conversations with them, or be willing to look past the criminal convictions. If you're hesitant, at least question them and talk to them about that, because they've worked on themselves. Like, ask them what they've been doing while they're in prison.
Yeah. So then you get out and you're doing this. Did you go back into another form of employment? And
Yeah, so when I came home, my brother was in real estate. So the day after I started working at his real estate company under his license, so I was helping. He had a foreclosure company, so we were helping homeowners that were in foreclosure at the time try to save the home and put off the foreclosures of the home. So I got to do that with him for a little bit. And then my family launched their restaurant, I think like 8 months after. So I was there with them from talking about the concepts of it, having my mom and aunt sit down and actually like, how much of this are you using? They're like, we don't know. We just put splashes.
Yeah.
So
Mama's recipes are all up here.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh, and then they taste it, so they don't know. And for us to be able to, so from that to be able to launch the business and build the POS system, I was there for all of that, and then just to work as the general manager. And then
is the restaurant still around?
It's still around.
What's it called?
It's called Monarch 9. It's in Yorba Linda.
Okay.
So my brother's doing very well in there. So I was there for part of that, and then since I was part of Defy Ventures, it's also about like the entrepreneurial mindset. So it's always like, what's the opportunity? What are you doing with it? So I launched my first company 6 months after a commercial cleaning company, because I used to work in the prison hospital, so I used to run the cleaning crew.
Okay.
So that gave me a different take on like, this is how you run a cleaning crew. And I remember talking to my brother. I was like, hey, why don't the cleaning crew in this real estate building sucks?
Yeah, hire my guys.
Why don't you create a company and I'll run it for you? And I remember my brother like, that's not how you do it. You don't just start a company. So then
you're like, watch this.
Well, I didn't know that, but I was just like, okay. So then it was like later on when my sister-in-law tells me, hey, can you help me write a cover letter for my uncle? I was like, okay, what cover letter? He's like, oh, the building owner wants to get rid of the janitorial company in here. So why don't you write a cover letter and they're going to hire my uncle. And I said, like, wait, why didn't we just create a company and we hire your uncle? We pay him better. Why didn't we do that? She's like, oh, that's too much trouble. I was like, damn, I wish you had told me about this. Because I'm going to Defy Ventures work. My brother's like, your head's too much in these things about like all this stuff. That's not how the real world works. So then the next day, my sister-in-law comes back and said, do you still want to clean this place? That was her word. Like, do we still want to clean? I said, yes. So then I said, give me the building owner's email. So she gave me his email. So then I said, okay, what am I going to call my company? So I got onto GoDaddy. I looked up like gold janitors, platinum janitors. I said, I wanted to sound like valuables.
Yeah.
And it was already taken. So then I said, what about Jade
And you don't even
janitors?
have a janitor yet.
Jade janitors. And I said, Asians, we love the jade stone and the JA.
Okay.
It's like, okay, Jade janitors. Nobody has it. $9.99, GoDaddy. I bought the domain name and I emailed him and I said, my name's Quan Huynh. I'm the founder and CEO of J Janitors. Because at Defy, that's how when we're pitching, you have to say, I'm the founder and CEO. I'm founder and CEO of J Janitors.
And it's all truth.
Yes.
You don't know that I'm a single employee of J Janitors.
I used to run a cleaning crew at a hospital in Northern California. So that's still true.
All real shit.
And I'd like to get an opportunity to bid on your building. So he said, okay, can you give me your business license and certificate? So I'm like, what is this? Where do I get it? And I asked a family member, she's like, oh, you have to go to the county courthouse and you have to go to the city of Fountain Valley to file the license. So I remember I went to the county courthouse the same day, did that, went to the city, got the business license. The person at the business things, he's like, ha, why you call yourself J Janitors when you're the only employee? I said, because I'm going to have lots of employees. And we put that together and I sent it to the building owner and he said, okay, can you give me a copy of your insurance? So I'm like,
let's go get some insurance.
So I got onto Google, like, what is janitorial insurance? And I looked at the policies. They said, okay, typical policies is $1 million aggregate, 1 million policy per occurrence, 2 million aggregate, whatever. And then I was like, okay, what's the cost? And they said, okay, it's I think it was like $400 to buy the policy, and then you have to pay $80 a month for the next year.
Okay.
So I go, this will cost me $1,200. This is like my first big gamble. Like the business license and DBA was like $200 or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, this will be worth it. Like, if I grab this and I purchased the policy, no employee, no contract, no business, and sent it to him, and he said, okay, can you give me a quote on the building. So I already worked in it, but I go, okay, this would probably take me about 4 hours to clean it if I was to clean. So I'll pay someone about 6 hours to clean it. This is what I'll pay them. This is the margin I want. I sent the quote off, and they said, can you start this Friday?
Wow.
Yeah. And got the first contract, plugged somebody in, and if you want a book on the first million mistakes to do opening a business on the first month, that was me, like messing up in every way possible and apologizing and figuring things out. But today we have like 6 employees. 4 of them are also formerly incarcerated. My best workers by far.
Okay.
And it just runs on its own.
Wow,
Yeah.
dude. So it's still up and going.
It's still up and going. I mean,
What year was
2016. I got out in November 2015. I launched my company 2016, and then Defy Ventures expanded out here to Southern California. So by that time, I knew that they were expanding, and I really loved like their mission, what they did. So they were opening a new chapter out here in LA. So I interviewed for a program manager position, and I was hired. So that was 2017. Because by that time, I think I just felt like, man, I missed that, being able to facilitate and do impact. Like I was just working in the restaurant and doing real estate. So I walked away from that career and I went into nonprofit. And over the years, my roles and responsibilities have grown. And now I get to oversee our chapter out here in Southern California. And now we're one of the largest chapters nationally. And yeah, when I look back, like, damn, all these things I've been able to do, like from systemic change, like say during the pandemic, I saw overnight we lost 70% of our contracts.
Yeah.
Like buildings are shut down. They're like, oh, we're canceling contract. We're canceling contract. And then, okay, there's relief, paycheck protection program. Okay, let me fill this out also online. And I get to question 5 and it says, have you ever been convicted of a felony? And right when I click yes,
that's the term. That's it, huh?
It grayed out. And so I remember,
damn.
I was like, damn.
What does that have to do with what we're doing here?
Well, that's I was like, I felt sorry for myself for about 45 minutes, and then I was like, man, what does my conviction from 20 something odd years ago have to do with
a struggling business right now over a pandemic?
And then like, how can my employees not get relief? Like, we're all tax-paying citizens. Like, I love this PPP program. This is great, but we're tax-paying citizens too. Why are we not benefiting from this? So I don't know what happened, but like CBS Money Watch found out, then CNN, and then next thing I know, the ACLU contacts me, and then Defy Ventures, the organization I work for, did a class action lawsuit with the ACLU. I was one of the main people that they interviewed, so we did a class action lawsuit. We sued the SBA on behalf of all small business owners with criminal history, so they changed their language. They had to show a nexus on that question. So they can only deny somebody that has been arrested, that was convicted of like financial crimes or something. Other than that, what does my conviction from a long time ago have to do with it? So we were able to successfully change that language.
Wow, that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
And then, you have a family now, I'm assuming. That was your daughter that walked in here. Mm-hmm. So how powerful was that to like, because remember, you said like looking at your brother's daughter was kind of the moment where you're like, man, what am I going to have? What am I going to be? What does my life look like? Yeah. And now you have your own family.
Yeah, I have my own house. Like, I remember of all the, here's another funny story is like when I was writing my book. So when I was running my company, I had my commercial cleaning company. I was working full-time for Defy, going to college full-time, and I was beginning to write my memoir. This was 2019, and then my mom got in an accident, so she was in the hospital. And there was so many obligations for me, so something had to give, so I dropped out of school. Mm-hmm. So to my mom, I made the wrong decision. Because she's like, oh, you could have done something else. Why did you drop out of school? I said, what am I going to do with a degree? So now
you already know everything. So you already got your doctorate in prison.
Last summer, I got accepted to Harvard Business School's Executive Leadership Program. So I was out there on site at the Harvard Business Square, going to school there, and she calls me and she's like, I would have never thought in a million years my son gets to go to Harvard Business School. And I'm like, of all the everything else I've done, like, this is what you're hanging your hat on, Mom? Like, she's like, okay.
How cool is that though, that Mama gets to be proud of you?
Yeah, it is.
You know, because like think about it as you're a parent now. I have 3 children, and I have to think, like, if they were incarcerated, I think that would be equally as painful for me as it would be for them.
Oh, yeah.
Because you could never set that stress down of worry. So Mama was packing that the whole time too.
Oh, yeah. It's funny because, like, she, just last week, she never really understands what I do. And we recently started doing digital newsletters, so she's able to see things that I'm doing inside the prison because we're getting film in there, and she started crying, and I didn't see her cry. And she's like, "This is what you do?" I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Oh my God, this is what you do? You're really helping people."
That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
How often are you involved? Because like you said, you were there with Newsom, last week or something?
Yeah.
Is this like a regular thing you're going in?
We run about, I think currently we're running about 8 cohorts here in Southern California. So I'm in prison like every other week.
Oh, really?
Pretty much. Yeah, like with events.
Do you go to all the different prisons, or do you work specifically where you came from?
No, we're only the specific ones that we're working with. Though we're in like 7 prisons out here in Southern California. One of them is in San Diego. That's the one I was at that prison.
Have you ever ran into the commissioner again?
No, I have not.
I'm waiting for that day. I want to hear that story when it happens, because you will.
Maybe one day. Yeah.
Right? Like, how cool will that be, man?
That would be pretty cool.
Man, that's fascinating. So and you may have already mentioned it, but the name of your program, and like, I'm assuming it has YouTube channel and all that stuff. Are you on social media and whatnot?
Yeah. So the organization I'm involved with is called Defy Ventures, like Defy the Odds.
Okay.
And Ventures. Social media, everyone can find me, but it's Quan, and I have an X in between my first and last name, Quan X Huynh.
Okay.
So it's kind of, but
so
QUANXHUYNH.
I'll tell you what we'll do to streamline it. Text me it when we're done.
Yep.
And I'll just copy and paste it right into the show notes below. But this is an interesting episode because, again, like, my background being on the other side of the law, I've had a lot of cops on and people from that side. But I think a lot more people are struggling with the things that you talked about today than we're probably even aware. I know this episode is going to resonate with a lot of people.
Yeah, I remember when I wrote my book, I used to tell people it's written for men that are doing long or lifetime sentences, and in it I'm sharing with them how did I come to my own sense of freedom. And I've been told numerous times by numerous readers, they said, your book is more than just people in prison, like they say like we're all in some type of prison of sorts. So I was like, oh, this is cool.
Think about that. Like, metaphorically, everybody's in a prison to a certain extent, and all of your teachings and realizations that you applied to a physical prison are probably applicable to just simply the mindset of being in a prison.
Yeah.
Dude, that's super cool, man. Well, we're at 2 hours. That's how I usually wrap the show up, at 2 hours. But also, if there's anything else that's part of your program, anything we didn't touch on, anything you want to share that you're called to share, is there anything else?
Not that I think of. I mean, like, if your listeners want to come into prison with me, I reach out. Yeah, I'll bring them in too. Like, or if they have, they want to come into prison, see our work. If you have people that have the abilities and the means to really do impact, and they want to make a bigger impact in the world, have them reach out to me, and we could get them to see our work firsthand and see how they can help us continue to expand and scale.
Okay, that's awesome, man. Maybe I need to go into a prison with you sometime.
Come in with me and Jeremy.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
How much notice do you need?
I'll have to give you notice because it takes about 45 to 60 days to clear ahead of time. So it's like I could give you all the upcoming ones.
Okay.
And then
they got to make sure I'm not going to keister a phone or something in there.
No. If I could walk in.
Yeah, I know. I'm kidding. Yeah, let's do that. When I like to experience new weird things that is like kind of outside of my wheelhouse. I would love to do that.
Yeah, I mean, like our program, it's 7 months, and it culminates in a business pitch competition that's judged Shark Tank style by volunteers that we bring
really?
in. So you would be a judge, and you're judging someone pitching a business, and these are people going through our program. So it's really cool.
Wow. Yeah, I'm excited. We'll make that happen.
Okay.
So thanks again, Quan. That was a fascinating story. I know it took 2 hours of your night on a kind of unexpectedly, but this was a special episode. I think it's going to get a lot of value, and it's going to be received well. So I appreciate you, and we'll stay in touch, and we'll get that trip on the books.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Thank you.